Hey, how you folks doing? Coming to you from beautiful, lovely Vermont once again, because I can never, get enough of the Green Mountain State, so to speak. Right in front of you, what you're looking at there. In fact, there's a whole swath of them. If you really pay attention, it might be hard to tell, actually, because I'm pointed down. But get a little zoom out there. What you're looking at right there, just cleared some of the grass away, is one of the most intensely fascinating species of fern I believe to be extant in New England and in general. Just this whole genus is absolutely incredible, evolutionarily interesting, anatomically interesting, and plays an important role in understanding the evolution of vascular plants. So what you're looking at right there is a fern known as Ophioglossaceae pusillum, which at first might not really resemble a fern, but rest assured it is a fern. It is a rather basal species of fern, basal lineage, I should say. Basically meaning that if you were to take out, or look at the family tree of ferns, so to speak, the family tree of plants in general, this guy would be down near the base of the trunk. So, your bracken ferns, your marsh ferns, ostrich ferns. Most people have a general idea of what a fern looks like, and generally speaking, that's going to include segmented foliage, compound leaves, segmented foliage, what have you. Spores often on the back of the leaves, unless you're in the cool guy club and you know what a dimorphic fern is, or the difference between the sporophyte, spore-bearing leaves, and the regular vegetative leaves is not readily apparent. Anyway, I digress. This plant here is Ophioglossaceae, which is the type genus for the family Ophioglossaceae, which is, of course, the namesake family of the order Ophioglossaceae. This guy's been doing his thing for quite a long time. I'll have to do a little bit of research and figure out exactly when in geologic time this thing broke off. But I mean, they've been around since at least, the Mesozoic, relatively unchanged. The Mesozoic, for those of you who might not know, that's the age of the dinosaurs. That's the Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous. So this thing was out relatively similar in form to what it looks like now, around the same time that the White Mountain Plutonic Suite was uplifting the White Mountains over New Hampshire, and around the time that they were still dinosaurs roaming around. Get the exact date on when this basically broke off in the rest of the ferns. So Equisetum, the horsetails, are technically a bit more basal than this lineage, but I find these much more fascinating. I guess that kind of covers the taxonomy of the thing. I'll get a little bit into the anatomy, and then a very important message about the habitat and conservation of the species. So allow me to move the camera down lower a bit, because these are quite small. So the first thing you're going to notice about this is, as I said, most people think of ferns, they think of dissected foliage. Well, here's the leaf on this thing. Just a single, rubbery, clasping basal leaf. I did an episode quite a while ago about a plant called Pogonia ophioglossoides, the rose pogonia. So that epithet, Ophioglossoides, actually comes from its resemblance. The basal leaf on that bears a striking resemblance to the basal leaf on this Ophioglossaceae. So I think that Ophioglossaceae pusillum, either southern or northern adder's tongue. Adder's tongue is the common name in general for this. There's more than one species, but this is the only one we get in New England. And that's the two parts of it, that basal leaf, and what you're looking at there, this almost could trick you into just thinking it's a grass blade, is the maturing sporophyte. That's where the spores come out of. That's it. That's the anatomy. I believe that there's also, and I'll have to again do some research on this at the same time I'm looking at the age of the lineage. I'll have to figure out if and to what extent these also associate with mycorrhizal fungi. So that's where the spores are going to come out up top. That's your one little vegetative leaf, and that's all you get. There's another one right next to it to the left, and in fact, in this little seep here, my acquaintance Levi has been so kind to show me the various populations that they have around here, and this is a nice protected spot. So I've just been given the good fortune, or to be shown this. Sorry, I digress, going on a little tangents there. Somebody commented, they said, oh, when you say I digress, I think it's really funny. It's just it's a vocal tic. So anyway, yes, that's where the spores would come out. That's the base of the leaf. Those are the two components. The other anatomical thing that's fascinating about these basal lineages of ferns, all three of them, is you get your leptosbranchiate ferns, which are, again, what we think of as ferns, and then you get all these three, eusebranchiate ferns. I've talked about this a bunch of times. You get the horsetails, you get the Ophioglossums, the grape ferns, the rattlesnake ferns, and the whisk ferns, and then you get the meradioid ferns, or the potato ferns, as they're sometimes called, down in the tropics, the huge, big, giant ones. And all that means, eusebranchiate ferns are producing their spores out of multiple cells. They're, the parent cells are multiple, and then the leptosbranchiate ferns basically figured out how to do it with one cell. I guess that translates to a more efficient means of reproduction for them, which in turn translates to greater ecological success in the modern era. I think that has something to do with making them a lot more drought tolerant too, but I'm getting ahead of myself there. So some of the anatomical stuff, some of the taxonomic stuff. Let's talk about the habitat a bit. Zoom out a little bit. As you can see, we're just in an open, short, grassy meadow. Get some rubus around. Actually, a decent number of invasives too that don't seem to be screwing with this plant. It's super, super hard. Turn the camera over to here. Get a nice little patch from down here underneath the cinquefoil. If you can make those out. See them? Little alien antennae. So this is another one. You know where I'm going with this. The habitat's open. What could I possibly be about to talk about? That's right, it's fire suppression, and it's frankly trampling. So a lot of the places people are seeing these are like beautiful old fields like we're in now. Ski slopes tends to be another area where they kind of eke out a niche, and then snowmobile trails. Those are the three types of habitat I personally have let me actually get one in focus. Those are the three types of habitat I personally have been told. I can't find it now. I can see it in person, but I can't get it in focus on the camera. There we go. Yeah, there you go. That's good enough. Those are the three types of habitat I personally am familiar with it being seen. And, ski slopes, generally speaking, people aren't usually permitted on them in the off-season, so they tend to stay protected and unobserved. Old field habitats are mostly on private property, and sometimes, unfortunately neglected, unlike this one. And then the snowmobile trails, well, that would be all well and good if people actually, only use them for snowmobiling. The part of the problem is there that they also get used for hiking, which is probably not the biggest deal in the world, but unfortunately people do, against the wishes of trail stewards, take their ATVs and their what do they call them, side-by-sides out on them. So the combination of fire suppression and basically these types of habitats not being easily accessible or not always well managed is kind of leading to a decline in the species. It's also tiny and green and generally uncharismatic. But rest assured, if you're a fern apologist like I am, that thing's weird looking. It's gonna stick right out to you. It's got the one little, just again, the little leathery leaf on the bottom, and then just the little alien antenna of a sporophyte up top. Remarkably simple, but it is in its simplicity quite a beautiful plant. In any case, we're gonna check out a couple other things, and then I'm gonna move on through yet another Vermont escapade. And just really, really cool, not only to finally see it in person, but also to see such a beautiful and such a healthy population of it. So, Ophioglossum pusillum, and we're going to go see some of its relatives right now. All right, and here you go. We've got plenty of them growing around. This is not an Ophioglossum. This is a species in a genus I've actually covered before. These tend to be a bit more common, although some of them are still, quite rare. This is Botrychium tenebrosum, which I guess tentatively we'll use the common name swamp rattlesnake fern or swamp grape fern. And this one, you'll notice a couple things right off the bat. This little sporophyll right here Oh, that's fat. I just turned it around for the first time. That's weird looking.
Yeah.
Actually has the spores out currently, and they're rather scandent on that sporophyll. Not too many actual individual sori there. It's fascinating. I'll get in close with I'll take a good macro shot and I'll put it on like I'll put a little insert here to show you, because that's actually wild looking. It almost looks like it's got some sort of disease. Not to be insulting, it's still a cool looking plant. And then there's just that little leaf. Just the one. So the Ophioglossaceae, especially like the actual Ophioglossaceae, not Celotaceae, not the whisk ferns, but the Ophioglossaceae family, Ophioglossaceae, I believe they all just do one leaf and one sporophyte, which is rather limiting, in terms of, what you can do in plasticity. But I've been told that these also vary tremendously in their size. In the sun, like we are now, they tend to grow shrimpy and small. I've seen, almost knocked my camera over, I've seen Botrypus virginiana, the really common one, the rattlesnake fern, growing, 2.5 feet tall in like shaded woodlands. That being said, I guess that one can also grow rather shrimpy. A good thing to mention at this point, I was reminded of, is that a lot of these, especially Ophioglossaceae, you're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of pairs of, not thousands and thousands, up to and over 1,000 pairs of chromosomes. Genetically speaking, this rather simple and primitive looking plant, many of it and both many of its relatives, I don't have a specific number on Botrychium tenebrosum, but a number of these are just incredibly complex genetically, despite their rather simple physiological appearance. So that's Botrychium tenebrosum. We've got another one back here, potentially one or two more we can look at, I think, including a small dwarfed Botrypus virginiana. So genetically speaking, I would only imagine that comes from maybe just generation after generation after generation of polyploid parents, or I'm a little bit out of my depth on the plant genetics, but just remember, if anybody ever tries to make you feel like, oh, we're genetically complex organisms, you only got 48 sets of chromosomes. This thing probably has close to, if not over 1,000. I think an onion has like hundreds of chromosome pairs too. So some of the plants get real complex, real complex with their genotypes. Anyway, we're gonna keep the grape fern, the rattlesnake fern, the adder's tongue tour going here. Fascinating, fascinating place that has been cultivated here for these intensely fascinating species of fern. All right, and moving on to the next subject here. Again, different genus. So my understanding is that at one point, and as far as even the Florinova anglii, as far as I know, still has all of the non-Ophioglossaceae species in this family as a Botrychium, but they've been split out. So you get Botrypus, Botrychium, and then this one right here, which is Sceptridium dissectum, which is probably the most fern-like looking thing we've seen today in a video that's going to be almost entirely about ferns. As I understand it, again, because I'm more tuned in with New Hampshire and Massachusetts botany, this species is not terribly uncommon here in the state of Vermont, but still here, growing with all of its cousins, and still something fascinating to cover. Unfortunately for this guy, it looks like perhaps unintentionally, or maybe something came and nipped off that sporophyte there. So those would have unfurled into the spore-bearing fronds. And this little, unlike the Ophioglossaceae or even the Botrychium, this little sporophyte, bears a pretty striking resemblance to the one I'm most familiar with, Botrypus virginiana. So, you got to remember here, everything is gonna have its why am I blanking on the word? Synapomorphies, common features between species in the same lineage. So that single leaf with the sporophyte coming out of it. Technically, I think on some of these it's all one leaf. I think on the Ophioglossaceae it's an actual proper basal leaf, and on the rest of these they kind of emerge from almost the same stem. Actually, I'm looking at this now. It does not, in fact, emerge from the same stem, if that's conveying in the camera. Look at my middle finger there is where the sporophyte, which is right here, looks like it broke off from. And then, in fact, that the vegetative leaf is separate. Botrypus virginiana, they're conjoined. I know that for certain. Anyway, we can go take a look at maybe one more thing. Get close to wrapping this up. And then right there, a small example of the species, but one I've covered before. That's Botrypus virginiana. So this is the one that I'm familiar with, growing in like a wooded, shaded setting, getting to be, you know, 2 or 3 feet high, an impressively sized fern. And this one, for certain, as you can see, does have the sporophyte, which has been nipped off by something emerging from the actual vegetative leaf. So this one does have that characteristic, you know, pretty specifically. Oh, actually, if you look down, literally right below my camera, there's one that's in better shape. So this one didn't get its sporophyte nipped off. So again, these can grow pretty large and pretty elaborate. This is the species, if you're going to find something in Ophioglossaceae in New England, especially if you're in like a nice rich wooded setting, you can find these beautiful plants. I could have had a video out. Hopefully I would have gotten around to editing by the time that I'm editing this one, but about Anderson-glossum. This species is kind of one of its notable associates in that proper, you know, damp, cool, rich northern hardwood forest setting. Here you wouldn't expect to find an Anderson-glossum, but yeah, we've covered this one before in the past, but still just another fantastic example of one of them of a lineage of ferns that I've been nothing but obsessed with since I really, you know, started getting to the ferns. Okay, we're gonna wrap things up here, but we're gonna end in this nice little fen on the edge of the property here. Right in front of you, there's a beautiful, quite turgid moss, Philonotis fontana, and that epithet gives hint to the fact that we are indeed, you know, right above a nice little calcareous seep. You've got grass of Parnassus over there too. Parnassia is the genus name. I've got pictures of it. I'll put a little. All right, move it closer. Not in bloom right now, but those are the vegetative leaves. I believe that comes up a little bit later in the summer. Oh, I can't remember the family that's in, but I'll put it there down below. I know that my friend is quite into these. Nice little patch from there. Also, what you got over here, as you would expect in any sort of nutrient deficient habitat, get your lovely Drosera, rotundifolia, carnivorous plant. And then, surprising to me, because I didn't realize they bloomed quite this early, at the part of my sloppy camera work there, get a beautiful, lovely Spiranthes orchid, Spiranthes lucida, which is one I've actually covered before, but not in good condition, not in full bloom. Look at the beautiful yellow labellum, almost like dye green yellow stalk, completely hairless, and early bloom time. Where I've seen these growing in Massachusetts, they get actually quite large, but here up in Vermont, it did stay shrimpy. The size of these Spiranthes lucida is actually the size of the Spiranthes tuberosa that we're growing with them, because tuberosa will get like big down south. Yeah. But a fascinating, lovely, you know, species of Spiranthes, and I think these are pretty widespread, I believe, around the east.
Yeah, they're S3 in Vermont, but they are found in a variety of habitats around here.
Yeah, I've seen them growing in cemeteries, but yeah. So anyway, we're gonna wrap things up. This is the type of stuff. If you've got a nice acreage, especially if you've not, you know, developed it to the point of being unrecognizable, you too could, you know, enjoy the fruits of proper habitat management. Get a whole bunch of cool Ophioglossaceae. Why don't you install a nice fen? That's what I said. I said I want to install this in my house. Forget a hot tub. Although you could put the hot tub like right above it, just, you know, elevate it so that it doesn't sit on anything, and you could enjoy a nice evening by the fen. Who knows what cool. I mean, probably a little shallow for many amphibians to be coming through here, but you never know. Anyway, we're gonna wrap this up, and it's a really cool experience. It's a great privilege to have, and we're gonna continue on our Vermont adventure a little bit down the road. Take it easy, folks.